Hello, I'm Lauren Haldeman, Editor-in-Chief of the Journal of Nutrition Education and Behavior, where we are advancing research, practice, and policy. Each month, we select an article to feature as a press release with an accompanying podcast. And today's podcast article can be read in full at www.jneb.org for free for the next 3 months. And today, I'm really happy to be speaking with Dr. Jared McGuirt, who is the corresponding author for the article titled Digitalization of the Retail Food Environment, Modernizing Food Access, Highlighting Health Equity, and Identifying Opportunities for Future Research and Practice. I'm really glad to have you with us today. Jared, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Lauren, so much for the opportunity to speak with you today. Really excited to talk about this paper. I am an associate professor in the Department of Nutrition and Public Health Sciences at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. I do a lot of work in this space, and so this is definitely a paper that is relevant to the work that I do, and I felt like it's a paper that needed to be written because I think we needed to rethink some things as the world has changed around us. And so this is very much in line with kind of the work I do and the work that I would love to pursue in the future.
Great, thanks so much. And it's nice to be talking to you as an author because we usually interact as an editor, associate editor. So I'm really glad to have you here to talk about this paper. So can you talk a little bit about the paper itself? So giving just a brief overview. Now, it's a research report, but if you can give us an overview, that'd be great.
Yeah, so we wanted to create something that could really contribute to the field and it could really be a guide for people to have a good understanding of what's happening in the retail food environment and how this digitalization is really changing the game. And so what we set out to accomplish a few different things. First, we wanted to just really give people a really clear overview of what is happening, what this digitalization is looking like, and kind of where things are going. And I think a lot of times people tend to mainly go to things like online grocery shopping, but it's actually much more expansive than that. And we are interacting with digital interfaces pretty much everywhere now when we go to the food retail environment. Even when fast food restaurants, you go in and there's kiosks now that you interact with instead of a person. So we tried to think very big and very expensive. And I think that's one thing that is a little different than for this report compared to some other things that have been published, is that we wanted to take a broader view because online grocery shopping, which has been a big focus in our field, it's still only the uptake is still relatively low compared to broader shopping behaviors. And so we just wanted something that was more inclusive of the environment. And then we also wanted to really modernize the 5 A's of access, which has been so important for the food access research field. So, the original 5 A's of access was actually from the healthcare sector. It then got adapted to work with examining food access. And there's this very seminal paper that was published about, I guess, 15 years ago on this. And just so much has changed since then. And so I really felt like there was a need to update it based off this digitalization that was happening. And so we talk about the 5 A's of food access. We break down each one, what the original conceptualization was, and then how we felt like it needed to be updated. And so that's actually one of the coolest things about this paper, and I think will be one of the more important pieces that people take from this is just kind of rethinking food access because it's just changing very rapidly. Then we go into talking about measurement challenges and opportunities, and this is really relevant for people that are wanting to do research in this space. There's just a lot of new ways that we can be thinking about impacts and assessing the way that people interact with these different environments. And so we just really wanted to talk about that. We want to talk about the challenges of it, that a lot of things are proprietary, like it's hard to get access to some of the data in these digital environments. But if you get creative and you work with computer scientists, like there's things that we can do to help get information that can help us to understand, again, how it's impacting people's behaviors and how we can modify people's modify people's behaviors using similar tools that the industry is using. And then we talk about health equity and ethics around this world, who is benefiting from it, who is not, who's getting left behind. We talk about like data privacy concerns. We talk about predatory marketing and targeted marketing, and just like the implications of that, because I think that's really important for us to think about, particularly people that are interested in health disparities and health equity work. And then we really end the paper in a way that I think is important. We talk about what the implications are for the field. We wanted to think very broadly about that. So we talk about interventions, we talk about nutrition education needs, and we also talk about some potential policy approaches that could help with this new world that we're living in. So that's a general overview of the paper.
Sure. And to your point, it's changing so quickly. So to try to keep up is a real challenge. And I wanted to thank you for talking a little bit about, first inspired you to update these 5 A's of access. So as we all know, when things change so quickly, there's lots of benefits and there's also potential for drawbacks. Can you talk a little bit about that as it relates to the digitalization of the food environment?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think a lot of times when it comes to technology, I think that's, often it's just easy for people to just think very negatively about things and how like these, technology, whether it's AI or these algorithms are like manipulating people and getting them to like choose unhealthy stuff, which is definitely true. And that's happening. And we talk about that in the paper. But I think it also, in some ways, can make research a lot more, in some ways, easier. It can also make it more clarifying. Like we can actually understand behaviors a little easier in certain environments. So for instance, like it was always kind of hard for us to really figure out how people behaved in grocery stores without creating a lot of reactivity, where if we inserted ourselves into the situation as researchers, people would start acting differently. There's much more subtle ways that you can track behavior when someone's in an online shopping environment. And so in ways that they don't necessarily notice, right? And so that actually makes it more clarifying as a researcher for us to understand like how people may behave whenever they're being presented different food options. And so that's the approach we tried to take with this paper is like, okay, yes, there definitely are some things that are bad or that can create less healthy behaviors with this digitalization, but there also are things that are good. And in fact, we can create technology approaches that can be added into what's happening in the private sector and what's happening in the industry that can actually help people to eat healthier. And I always tell people like, gosh, like there's so many people that have healthier habits because of some of that technology products out there. And so I think in our field, if we can not be too pessimistic, and if we can instead think about all the opportunities that we have and the different ways that we can try and combat some of the things that we think are less ideal for people and their like dietary behaviors, I think there's a tremendous opportunity. I mean, some of the most rewarding things that I've been doing lately have been figuring out ways that we can beat the system, and the system being like the private sector and their different strategies they have to influence behaviors. Like I think it's so fun and rewarding as a researcher to create things that are very useful for people to help either realize what's happening whenever they're shopping or actually like nudge them towards healthier behaviors. So I just want other people in our field to see that balance, to like recognize the things that could be deleterious to people's health, but also realize that there's tremendous opportunity in this space. And even if you don't want to directly do research in this space, I think it's important that you understand that people are being influenced by this. And so whatever you're doing, whether it's a technology project or not, that you're accounting for what's happening. And so I think that's what is really valuable about this paper too, is it's just really trying to shine a very clear light about the entirety of the digitalization and just helping people to understand how people are being influenced so they can intervene in the ways that they think are useful.
Yeah, I do think it's sometimes a little scary to jump into the digital space because it is so uncertain in a lot of ways. I love how you just described how researchers and practitioners can approach these changes. Your passion clearly comes through about the work in this area. So let me put you on the spot here. What are what do you see are some emerging technologies that will matter most in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think obviously AI is changing a lot, right? And I think that even it's rapidly expanding in ways that people don't even realize. So I was actually just reading an article and it's talking about how a lot of people's perceptions of AI are based off of like the free versions or based off older versions of it, right? And how much has advanced just in 6 months, and how the paid or premium versions of these things are just like light years ahead of the free versions. And so, but eventually those premium versions are going to like filter down and become the free version. And so I think that it's definitely changing the way people interact with their food environment. Just having access to like generative AI and to like AI search engines. I see people all the time. I mean, even myself, like I'll be in the grocery store and I'll sit there and I'll pull out ChatGPT and I'll like search for something to figure out, hey, is this the best option among these, different products? Like either whether it's for like taste or whether it's for like nutrient content. I mean, I was searching something the other day. I was like, well, of these food products, like which one has the most nutrient density, right? And so I think that's such a cool opportunity for people to like leverage that level of information access. And I think it is getting better. Now, there's trust issues, I get it, but I do think it's getting better. And I think we do have to fully recognize that. But I think thinking next step about where that's going to go, I think, all these, because it's digital, the ability to integrate systems across each other, I think creates a lot of potential for a system of technology that we'll be interacting with. And so in some ways, this is already happening. But I really do think that you're going to see the emergence in the short term of integration of things like sensors, beacons, these things that are kind of tracking movement in space. I think you're going to see a lot of integration of data across the different technology platforms. I think long term, I think that there'll start to be a lot more augmented reality. So there'll be a lot of an addition of digital elements into the real environment. And I think that's going to be game changing, because if someone is looking at a certain area in a supermarket, say it's like just looking at the fruit, a place where there's a bunch of fruit, right? And they're using AR to help determine the best fruit to maximize flavor, then to me, like that's game changing, because then people are going to be eating stuff they actually enjoy, right? And if we can get people to eat more fruits and vegetables because they're selecting the stuff that's going to end up tasting the best, I think there's like tremendous potential for that. So and also like there's ways that we can help influence the way that people travel through the supermarket, right? So that's just stuff that's happening in the retail environment. We make this point in the paper that a lot of things are happening both kind of in the online environment and how that's affecting behavior, but also and the opportunities there. But we also talk about like all these new digital things that are coming to the in-person environment. They're just going to change the experience to a very high degree. And I hope that it will actually make the experience better for people and that people will make more informed decisions.
Just from the way that you're talking about it, Jared, it has such potential for use in nutrition education and behavior research and practice.
Yeah, the one last thing I'll mention is I think there's a lot of opportunity for practitioners in this, and hopefully they read the paper and they see that we've like spent a lot of time trying to speak to them, because we think that it's really important for them to understand what's happening in this environment and to be able to educate people. Yeah, and I also just want to acknowledge my co-authors. Their role was very important in this paper.
Well, thanks very much again, Jared. And to all of our listeners, remember you can read this article in full at www.jneb.org for free for the next 3 months.